Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you in another video. Alright, so got a funny little sequence where the Hawks Heat game ended the same time the Timberwolves Grizzlies games going into halftime. So got a little time to just kind of address you guys. I can at least say hello and give you a few thoughts. So yeah, BDO44, thank you for coming to my channel. Trae Young is playing horribly. Absolutely horribly. He turned the ball over 10 times in this game. In the previous game, I think he went 1 for 9 or something like that. It was really, really bad in terms of his three-point shooting. This is a nightmare series for him. And we could talk a lot about Clint Capella not being out there. And I would imagine that something involving Clint Capella's, what he brings to the table within the details can trickle down to what we're seeing here. I'm sure there's some correlation between his poor play and Clint Capella not being there, and I'm also sure it's somewhere nestled somewhere within what the Heat are able to do defensively because he's not out there. And what I'm seeing, even though I'm not really watching that series as closely as maybe I'm watching a few others, but what it seems like is happening right now is he is just forcing things. They're pushing him into positions that are uncomfortable for him, and he's not able to operate there. And what I think a solution for that for the Hawks is, in my opinion, is they just have to switch up their style. And I know it's a little late to be doing that, but as I've said about the Hawks for the last 2 seasons, they're just too Trae Young eccentric. It's okay to have a player who's capable of doing what he can do. And it's okay to build around that player. But making it so that he's the only thing that you center everything around in terms of your play style is a mistake. In this league, right now, most teams can remove a player and change their style of play. If they want to play in the half court, they can play in the half court. If they want to play in the full court, they can play in the full court. Teams who don't have many dimensions are teams that are often either left out of the playoffs or teams that are going to be leaving the playoffs very soon. And I feel like the Hawks are one of those teams that just don't play in multiple ways. Now, they had the personnel to do so before they traded away Cam Reddish, particularly because I think he's a pretty multi-dimensional. He can play every position, and I think you can really get away with playing him as a point guard in big lineups and even as a 5 in small ball lineups if you truly wanted to. And it's like those are dynamics that the Hawks have with other players in their lineup as well. I look at the Johnson kid that they got on the back of the bench and whom I mention every time I talk about the Hawks. He's another one of those players where I look at him as he can play the 4. You can move him around because he can shoot the ball. You can put him at the 3. You can put him at the 5 in small ball lineups. You see what I'm saying? There are things the Hawks can do to give themselves a bit more versatility so that they're not so predictable. The Heat have a game plan for Trae Young, and the Hawks don't know how to play without Trae Young. That's the moral of the story. They don't know how to just utilize all these awesome offensive weapons that I've been telling everybody that they have. This is the deal. Bogdanovich was red hot in this game when I was looking around. He was shooting threes left and right, hitting every 3 that I saw him take. It seemed you got to get him the ball. You got to put Collins in positions to get easy buckets. I know he's just coming back. He's working his way back into the equation. But he needs to be in more actions that involve him catching lobs, shooting corner threes, getting those shots that he likes, getting to the line. Those are things that I need to see more of. Onyeka Okongwu, fantastic defensive player, gets the 50-50 balls really well. Another player that needs to be catching lobs, needs to be getting more actions that allow him to feel the ball in his hands. It's just too much Trae Young shooting jumpers, too much Trae Young dancing, too much Trae Young creating for others, forcing them to be players that need to shoot instead of being players that need to look for other opportunities to maybe look for someone else to make a play because they're relied upon to get his assist. It's just, you know what I mean? I really like Trae Young's game, and I don't think this is his fault. I just think it's the Atlanta Hawks as an organization understanding that they have this transcendent talent, and not wanting to let anything get in the way of catering everything to keeping him there. I guess they're more so afraid of losing him, it seems to me. But that's just how it looks from afar. But I think the best way to really assure that your organization can withstand him leaving, or to assure that he'll have a foundation from which to want to stay in Atlanta, is to make sure that the other pieces on the team can do something as well as him. He knows he can go, but what he doesn't want to do is turn into Dame Lillard. And that is exactly what Atlanta can kind of find themselves doing, is turning into Portland in a way, by catering everything to a shoot-first point guard and not cultivating the other talent around him. They got a lot of assets and they've drafted very well, but they're not getting the most out of the rest of the roster. You know what I mean? I like DeLon Wright. I think he's been fantastic in these playoffs. I really like him. But picking him up, all that did was put him in the way of another player who needed development on their bench. It's like another person in the way of them developing that player. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, DeLon is good enough to help me win to a degree, but he's not good enough to become that guy that I can trade for a first round pick. And this is what I'll be talking about the Lakers as well. And I always mention the Hawks because they're a great case study for this. It's because I don't think they utilize their assets as well as I think they should. And it is what it is, but it's just something I've noticed from afar. They got a great market. Atlanta's a place that people want to come to. It's a booming market. They got that fantastic young player in Trae Young. And they got a bunch of multifaceted scorers. People who can shoot, people who can run, jump, all kinds of stuff. But they just don't utilize all of it. So, yeah, that's something I just find ways of playing different styles, man. You know, next season, obviously, you don't want to start developing players in the playoff. But I think next season, they would be remiss not to get those two players that I mentioned, Sharife Cooper, and I believe it's Jalen Johnson or Justin Johnson. I'm not certain because they never use him, so we never see him. But, you know, Johnson, the kid Johnson on the back of the bench, the one who killed it in the summer league. I know what he can do. I'm not confused about his skill set or how dope of a player he's going to be. So 3 years from now, he's going to be good, and I'll let you know that I told you so, because I'm telling you so. He's good, and they should be using him now. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that's where the NBA gets it wrong so often. They be trying so hard to, keep veterans around. I hate to be that guy, but they try so hard to keep, to be patient with players in their development. I think sometimes they stunt their growth, to be completely honest with you. And you see it so often where these organizations just do not use these kids. And then you see these issues that they have. It's like, if it's working, it's working. You know, I look at Miami and I see a situation where, they're not playing Victor Oladipo, but it's working. You know what I mean? The rotations and the matchups and what it is they're trying to accomplish. They know Victor Oladipo can still play. But because they have their system in place and they trust that system and it's helping them win, there's nothing to complain about. Now, if the Spruces and the Vincents weren't playing well, right? And Victor Oladipo's still sitting there, then we have a problem. But so long as it's working, you ain't gonna never hear me complaining. But as far as Atlanta's concerned, nah. Miami got y'all. They got y'all figured out. If you can't tell, the whole Trae Young, everything y'all been running all season long, they figured it out. They know how to defend it. They got the personnel to defend it. And you're not going to win a game in this series unless you find a different style to throw at them. That's it. And you have the personnel. It starts with giving Sharife Cooper the ball, even though you didn't use him all season. So, that's not happening now. But what I'm saying is, in theory, what you needed to do was now put Sharif Cooper at the point guard and then set up shop in terms of getting the spacing on the floor for him to allow the shooters to shoot and give yourself enough size around him. Onyeka Okongwu, Collins, Bogdanovic, maybe Gallinari, and then you put Sharif or the kid Justin in Sharif or a different player in Sharif. But the point is you get the Sharif Cooper opportunity to run the point. At that point, he uses his functionality, which is to get everybody the ball. The complete opposite of Trae Young. Even though Trae gets his assist, this kid is thinking facilitation, ball movement, and excitement, momentum, things that are going to get your car out in the game. Now, obviously, in the road, that doesn't help you as much. But what I'm saying is, it's a different style of play. Now, they can't just cater everything to crowding the point guard or keeping him from doing the things that Trae does, because it's not Trae on the floor doing any of this stuff. Now, they got to switch their defense up to fit what it is they're seeing with Sharif, who's setting everybody up. Then you can put Trae back in at different styles, different times, different lineups, rotation different ways, and you find ways of switching it up in such a way that gives yourself a chance. Now, yes, does it leave you defensively? It's, in some ways you're left open. I think you're left open anyway. You know what I mean? Depending on what it is you do, you may leave yourself with holes in your defense, but all in all, you're not playing defense anyway. Your issue is on the offensive end. And the fact of the matter is, they've studied you, and what you're running ain't working. So, that's moral of the story. That's what I'm seeing there with Atlanta. They're going to be going in 2 games unless they switch their style up. So, now as far as the game I'm watching, the other one, I told you guys I have a lot of faith in Memphis. Obviously, it's a lot of basketball left to play. The Minnesota Timberwolves are walking into a situation where you're not catching them off guard no more. You punch them in the mouth. They sat with that. They heard what people had to say about that. They felt what it felt like to be the losers in this series. And they have another game at home, and they brought the intensity that they didn't bring in game 1. They made some adjustments. They removed Steven Adams from the lineup, brought in Tillman, and I've been telling you guys Tillman's been good all year long. He probably should have been starting all year long. And if it weren't for the things that Steven Adams brings to their team, Tillman would have started, and they'd have more scoring in their starting lineup because of it, because Tillman's a scorer. So you saw him go, 3 for 3, blocking shots as well. That's a no-brainer. He should be starting anyway. So that was a style of play adjustment, right? You didn't have to stick with something that didn't work. You could just move a player into get a different style. Memphis can do that every time, and that's what I told you guys about Memphis. If you've been following me, I said Memphis, and the difference between the Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies is the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have difficulty switching their style up because they have one-dimensional players. Not all of them are, but their defensive players often don't score very well, and their offensive players tend not to defend very well. Memphis don't have that problem. And so when it's time to switch players up and change their style up, if something doesn't work, they can swap this guy in, that kind of thing. Memphis has more versatility, and I think that bodes better for them going forward as this series progresses. As long as the Timberwolves can continue doing the same things that work, maybe they can switch things up here and there, but the majority of the time it's going to be the same type of attack and the same type of things that work for the Timberwolves. They're not as versatile. So that's ultimately what I think is going to work in their Memphis Grizzlies' favor, and I think that's what you're seeing in this game. The adjustments from game 1 to 2 from the Memphis side of things are working, and they're ready for the intensity as they weren't in the first game. So I don't think this series is anywhere near done. I don't. If Memphis goes on to win this game at all, because even though they're up at halftime, I'm not certain that's how this is going to go. The matchups are just kind of funny, and you're dealing with some really talented dudes on the Minnesota side. So, it's no guarantee that Ant-Man won't go off for 20 in a quarter, or D'Angelo Russell won't hit 3 threes or 4 threes in a quarter, or even Karl Towns might have a 50-point game somewhere in this series. So that's what Memphis has to deal with, is the fact that the Timberwolves have some huge star power over there, and key defensive players. But the adjustments are working thus far, and I still have them winning the series in 6. I think it's 6. 6 is safe. And last but not least, we'll be seeing the Pelicans tonight and the Suns. I just hate that the Pelicans ran into the Suns, because no one's beating the Suns, in my opinion. Well, I'm not picking them to win the championship, but what I'm saying is you better play championship ball if you're going to beat them, and I just don't think the Pelicans have that in them. They're a nice team with a lot of grit. Maybe if they got the right matchup, they could have, really made a series out of this thing, but the Suns are not that matchup for them. Not at all. They got just too much to deal with in terms of the Sun. And like I said, when you talk about styles of play, switching up, far be it to find a better team that can switch their style up than the Suns this season. They can do whatever they want basically with their lineups. So, yeah, I don't expect much. I do think the Pelicans will get a game out of this series. In fact, they might get this one tonight. If you're going to catch a team off guard, maybe make yourself feel good about something in a series, you're going to fight your hardest in like a game 2, try to get that game on the road to feel good about going back home. So if there is a game to win for a good, gritty team, you would imagine tonight would be one they feel confident they could play well in. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So those are the games that are on tap tonight. Tomorrow we got 3 Eastern Conference games. It's going to be pretty interesting to see, man. Good stuff going on over there. So I'll keep you guys up on what I see. I thank you guys for sticking with me. BDF44. I'm out.